Hello, welcome to episode number 7 of Self Improvement and Spirituality in Practice, Blooming with Greicy Hoo. And today I'm going to talk about unnecessary sufferings you can avoid because everything in life is a choice, and amazingly, there are people who really like to suffer. Maybe it's a matter of masochism because some people really get pleasure with sufferings or with pain, and it may even be because sufferings make some people think they are stronger or even more valuable. Anyway, everyone has their own reasons, right? Gracie here. I've been a therapist for 18 years, an astrologer with 33 years of studies already, and I'm also an independent spiritualist from Brazil. My proposal here is to help you do better with yourself, with others, and with life. Everything has a why, a what for, and a how. And if you want to understand certain situations in your life and change your reality for better, and if you also want to evolve as a human being, so stay here and let's have a conversation. Yes, some sufferings are really unnecessary and you can avoid them. And it's not a matter of intelligence, of being smart. No, it's a matter of having common sense and having a good head. Because let's face it, negative and indisciplined people suffer much more. Who is in charge inside of you? Are you in charge of your mind, or are your thoughts bad thoughts, negative thoughts that dominates you? Because this makes a huge difference in how you face everything in your life, not only how you deal with yourself, but also with other people and all the situations in your life. In my opinion, there are three sources of unnecessary sufferings. They are basically not knowing how to deal with yourself, how to deal with others, and with life, which are the three pillars of my work. Because when we are born, we don't receive like a manual, a procedure manual, how to deal with ourselves, how to emotionally and psychologically survive in this neurotic world, right? So, in my opinion, one of the main reasons of unnecessary sufferings is drama. You know, that person who gets easily impressed by negative things, actually anything. And what happened was not so big, was not so terrible, but the way that person sees everything, they just exaggerate all the aspects. Well, being dramatic, it's guarantee that you will suffer much more and for nothing, actually. So it is really necessary to have what I call self-possession, being charged not only of your mind, your thoughts, but your emotions also. The dramatic person always exaggerates their sufferings. Another reason of suffering is illusion and disappointment. Well, at this point of your life, I hope you already noticed that the bigger your illusion about something or someone, the bigger the disappointment you will likely have. Because one thing is reality, what can be, and what other people have to offer. And another thing is what you expect them to be or to behave like or whatever. And illusion and disappointment always come together. One always follow the other. If you have an illusion, you will have a disappointment at some point. And if you are experiencing disappointment, it's because you had an illusion before about that issue. So the best way to avoid this kind of suffering is to at least try to minimize your illusions and your expectations about anything, and also having ideals. One thing is to have goals in life, but another thing is to have ideals, like the ideal person you would like to meet, and the ideal job, the ideal boss, employee, friend, or whatever it is. Yeah, because in your mind, your concept of the ideal is just perfect, but reality, it's very different. I don't know if you already noticed this, but your ideals not necessarily match the reality, right? So common sense really makes a difference here. You can have your goals, you can have, an idea, not an ideal, an idea of the kind of person you would like to meet, for example, but you have to be down to earth to, at the first moment at least, get to know the other person and as they really are, or be smart about what they are trying to be but they are not really, or what they are pretending to be. You gotta open your eyes and accept reality, and don't expect the other person to be apparently perfect all the time, because we are just humans. And here I have to talk about emotional immaturity. The immature person in this emotional sense gets offended very easily with anything, and they just don't accept no as an answer. They are very bad about dealing with things that are not the way they want. They are really not good in dealing with frustration, accepting frustration, and they are actually very extremely spoiled. And that kind of person will definitely suffer much more in life, because we are getting no's all the time, anywhere, right? The things are not just, we must learn how to deal with frustration. I'm not saying you have to accept frustrations in life and do nothing, but be smart, accept the way things are, and change what you can. And the first thing you can change is your point of view. And oh, let me tell you something, changing the point of view makes all the difference in dealing much better with any person, any situation in your life. Because once you change your point of view to a more positive one, it makes you react differently and act in a better way. So your energy toward that person or situation becomes more positive, and you will have a better result in return. So it's really a matter of common sense and being smart in learning how to improve yourself, your consciousness, to have better results dealing in a more intelligent way with everything. Another source of sufferings in life is pride. And let me explain something. Pride itself, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it can give you a sense of dignity, like you won't beg for anyone's approval or love or acceptance. But when pride is expressed in a negative way by the ego, it comes in form of vanity and arrogance. And those are the main common manifestations of a bad form of pride. So, in terms of vanity, because pride can make someone really blind. The person insists on hitting their face against the wall and gets angry against the wall because, in their opinion, the wall is in the wrong place. They just don't, they are so blind and dumb because of their pride. They don't realize the problem is not the obstacle in their lives. The problem is about them being inflexible in moving differently and change your course and change your route so you won't hit the wall anymore. And in terms of vanity, it has to do with seeing yourself with other people's eyes, being a slave of other people's opinion and approval. So it's like a need to be perfect. So, with this kind of vanity and pride, you can become so demanding about yourself, your performance, or your image that is perceived by other people, that you become your worst enemy. And I will talk about this later this episode. But let me talk now about arrogance. The arrogant person who suffers much more than the humble people because they are so stubborn and inflexible. They demand everything the way they want, and they fight when people don't obey them and when things are not convenient to them. So the tendency for arrogant people is at some point of their life, they will end up lonely. But it's not the kind of loneliness that is a choice. It's a loneliness that comes from abandonment from other people, because the arrogant is so unbearable that at some point even the family, when the kids are already grown-ups, adults, they tend to avoid that person. You might know a case of an arrogant person that ended up alone in life and being rejected by relatives and has no friends anymore. But you know what? Life takes care of everyone, and at some point, people will be tired of suffering. Suffering not necessarily leads to an internal transformation. What really makes someone change for better in life, it's being tired of suffering. And when they end up at the rock bottom, then they can give in their pride and become humble and accept they were not doing right in their life, and maybe they should change in order to get better results. So basically, it's being tired of suffering that really makes a difference in changing someone, because then they choose to change themselves. Another cause of what I call unnecessary sufferings is anxiety. And what is anxiety? It's thinking about the future in a negative way, expecting the worst. Actually, it's a bad use of imagination. So the anxious person always suffer in anticipation, is self-torture. And not only anxiety is bad in the short term, but in the long term, a lot of anxiety will lead to psychological and emotional stress and also physical stress, because it's so much negative energy they are creating in their mind that at some point all that negativity will affect their physical body, and that they will start to have not only pain and but also malfunction in some organs. But it's true that the anxious person is always suffering, at least in a psychological way, right? Which is really unnecessary, because they are not in charge of their own mind. They cannot control their own thoughts. So it's a matter of discipline, self-discipline. First, realizing that if you are creating this in your mind, you can stop it anytime you want, and no one else can do this for you, this inner work. No one can tell your mind to shut up. It's your obligation. You are there inside, so it's up to you to make something about it. Or if you really like to suffer, if you like masochism, then it's your choice. But don't complain about anything with other people if you don't do anything about it, okay? And taking drugs to control anxiety, oh, come on, please, they can help, but you have to take control of your own mind. Otherwise, you will be a slave of drugs, right? And at some point, you can even get addicted to drugs to control your own mind. That's craziness. It always starts with self-discipline and a strong will to be really in charge of yourself, your mind. I said before that not dealing well with frustration leads to sufferings, right? It also has to do with not dealing well with rejection. And, well, let's face it, other people are not obligated to like us, and especially not to like us all the time or even forever. They can change their mind, and it's the same right we have. We can change our minds. We can get tired of their behavior. For example, at some point we may have not much in common anymore because you start to have different interests, your life goes in a different way, or they can change for worse with time and become unbearable. Whatever, you have the right to change your mind and don't want a relationship anymore, and other people have the same right. So it's a matter of emotional maturity to accept that fact, that reality, and don't get hurt because things changed. Again, common sense. You cannot expect things to be the same forever, right? You gotta be realistic. We are changing, people are changing, life is changing all the time. And the sooner you become more realistic about this, the less you will suffer. So, as I said in the beginning, a source of unnecessary suffering is number one, let's say, not knowing how to deal with yourself. It's, as I said, about not having a good head. There's a last episode, number 5, about some words you should avoid using, because it has to do with the way you see things. If you see a situation as a problem and not as a challenge or an opportunity to learn, then, well, there is some drama involved, and you will suffer in advance with not knowing how to deal with the problem. But if you see as a challenge, then it's not so hard anymore, right? You have a different approach to deal with it. And another thing that is really causing sufferings in your life is attachment, which is a prison, actually. And I learned in my life the worst way that suffering is directly proportional to attachment. So it really is necessary in life to learn how to detach with elegance and develop emotional independence. This is one of the things people have more difficulties in learning and in developing, because financial dependency, well, you can work, make your own money, but emotional independency, it's really hard for a lot of people. And because of that, they are so attached to others and afraid of not being happy, so happy alone without them. Then, when eventually life separates, it doesn't matter if the other person gives up being in a relationship with you, if you move to a different country or city, or you have a geographical distance, or even if the other person dies. If you are too attached, like really having an emotional dependency, of course you will suffer much more than if you had the different point of view that everyone is just a company in your life, and you are the only one that will be with yourself forever, for eternity. So you have to be the best company for you, and others are just, buddies, that, friends, and that can go with you, along with you for some time. The truth is, everything in life is temporary, and accepting this is not only a concept or a theory, it's a fact. Everything will change, everything will go. Only you will be with you forever, as I said. So, having this positive and mature perspective will make a huge difference in your life and will avoid you to suffer unnecessarily. Another thing about how to deal with yourself, if you, like I said before, if you don't accept the way you are, and you are so demanding and neurotically perfectionist, you have a lot of pain concerning to feeling guilt and punishing yourself. And I talked about a sabotaging subpersonality, the executioner judge. I also explained about the workaholic and the punisher, the perfectionist, many of them. Actually, 40, I gave 14 examples of sabotaging subpersonalities that cause sufferings in life. If you haven't listened to them, go check them out. It's they are episode. I start with episode number 2, explaining about the sabotaging subs, and the examples are in episodes number 3 and 4. Go check them out. You have a much more clarity about this inner process that really causes a lot of pain. So basically, if you don't accept yourself, it's not about not wanting to evolve, to improve. That is good. That's actually what you should do. And I'm here to help you with this self improvement. It's about not accepting yourself, being too demanding, and with the low self-esteem, not only with limiting beliefs about yourself, having a negative self-image, but if you see yourself as a bad person or an imperfect person, you will tend, and you are so rigid, you will, and demanding, you will tend to do what I call auto-bullying. You can be your worst enemy, and you will suffer a lot in your own hands and all the time, all days in your life. So that's something that you are the only one who can stop this process, because it's inside of you. Sufferings related to not knowing how to deal with other people. Well, I have to talk about suffer for love. And for many people, it seems romantic, it seems noble, it seems beautiful, nice, but actually, any kind of pain or suffering is nice or beautiful. This is a sick romanticism. It's there are people who see love as a drug. You know, the kind of person that loves to be in love. It doesn't matter who is the other person. For them, what is really important is to feel that, you know, that sensation that for them it's like taking a drug, because they can feel more special and out of reality actually. It's the kind of person that is so romantic, they say, that they have this ideal, this perfect person in their mind, the perfect partner they dream of, they expect to meet eventually, but it's just an ideal, it's not a real person. So the more they feed that ideal in their minds, the bigger the chances they will be very disappointed with real person, with human beings actually. Another thing is fall in love with someone who is already in a relationship, or someone with a different sexual preference, right? It's crazy. You can say, I cannot choose who I will fall in love with. Well, at the first moment, you cannot choose not to feel a physical attraction, or to feel dazzled by someone, or to admire someone. But you can choose not to feed your illusions, not to, you know, keep dreaming about being with that person. You can choose not to have more and more fantasies about being with that person. And here, since we are talking about love relationships, I have to talk about jealous. What is behind jealous is low self-esteem. Someone with this behavior is always comparing themselves to other people and feeling inferior. So it's a way of being in pain unnecessarily, right? I don't need to say much about this topic, because, of course, everyone who already had felt jealous about anyone they like and know how painful it can be, right? I'll just recap on something I said before. The other person has the right to change their idea and not wanting to be in a relationship with you anymore. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a love relationship or whatever. Even you have the same right. If you are not satisfied with in a specific job, for example, you have the right to quit. And feeling irritated by someone else's behavior, of course, it causes, let's say, a psychological or emotional suffering. But if it causes a reaction in you, then it has to do with you, that behavior. So the first thing, go deep inside and be humble to see, why are you so annoyed by someone else's behavior? Because it's very likely that is something that you also have in you, but you deny and repress. So unconsciously you will project that insatisfaction, let's put like this, in someone who will behave that way. So instead of being pissed by someone, try to look inside of you, why you are so, irritated about this, and do something. Please, the problem is not the person. The problem is not outside of you. You are the cause of everything in your life, because you are the only one who can do something about the way you see anything, the way you react, the way you feel, or the way you act, you are the only one. Another thing about dealing with other people is suffering someone else's pain. Oh, that's crazy. One thing is having compassion, right? But another thing is pity. And like if the other person is a poor one, a victim, you cannot help if you are suffering together, right? Imagine if you have someone crying because their love relationship is over. Will you cry together? That would be ridiculous. It's the other person's pain, it's not yours. So it's nonsense to, to suffer someone else's pain. You don't have to, but many people do. It's a matter of choice and masochism. Another thing, the third pillar, not knowing how to deal with life. Well, there are two ways to change in life. One is by choice, using intelligence, and the other is by coercion, through pain. If you don't go, if the life wants you to change or leave something behind and you resist, then you will suffer because you are too attached, because you don't want to move forward. And you can always choose the smart way, right? You don't, many times you don't really have to suffer. But why we have so much sufferings and pain in this physical life? Because for the higher intelligence of the universe, there is no punishment. But the thing is, what is really functional for someone to evolve if they are stuck in a situation that is not helping them to get a better level of consciousness? Like I said, if you are not changing or moving based on intelligence, using your intelligence, choosing to change, then life will use the more functional tool to make you wake up and move. Everything that happens in life is an experience. I choose to see it this way. Everything, every situation is an experience. Everything is an opportunity to learn, to improve, and also everything is a training. So, fighting with life because things didn't happen the way you wanted is not the smarter choice. Because if you choose to fight against life, guess who will win? That's the story of your life, right? It's useless to be angry and and not accept, deny reality, and not accept that things were not the way you wanted, because life doesn't spoil anyone. So if you haven't learned anything with past suffering, then you suffered for nothing. That's it. I have to be honest with you. You gotta learn something. Otherwise, you will suffer for nothing. And that's dumbness, right? Because if you didn't learn anything with a bad situation in your life, a pain or suffering, then you will probably will continue to suffer for the same reason. Life will bring you the same circumstances, like in a pattern, creating really a pattern in your life to force you to learn what you need to learn in order to evolve. So you will suffer for the same reason again and again, because you are invigilant and because of nonsense and dumbness. So it doesn't matter what kind of situation you went through or you are going through. Try to at least to learn something with that. How can you be better? How can you improve your level of consciousness? How can you make it a good lesson? and become wiser and not suffer for the same reason anymore. Please do yourself this big favor and learn something, even with past experiences. Try to learn something, and maybe you can help other people going through the same situation. Then that's another reason, for trying to learn something and changing your point of view. Don't stop seeing yourself as a victim, a poor victim and a powerless victim. Try to see what happened as an experience, an opportunity to learn, and or a training for to become stronger. And that's another thing I need to talk about. It's what people call God's will. If you think something apparently bad in your life, because if it's an experience and an opportunity, of course it's not entirely bad. It's just your point of view which is negative. But if you see that something in let's say a frustrating situation in your life was God or is God's will, then you put yourself in the position of the powerless victim, because you probably believe that there is divine punishment for something bad you did. Well, I consider this an immature kind of spirituality. I don't know where did you learn this concept of God, of the divine forces, but I have a very different one. For me, there is no punishment in life. Life doesn't punish anyone. God doesn't punish anyone. It's just the way you were taught to see things. But if this point of view causes you pain and suffering, you can change it. You have your will. Use it to a better point of view. I don't believe in a punisher God, because it makes no sense. Why making you suffer, punish you? Because if you received a free will, then you can always choose to do better, to be a better person. Punishment doesn't teach anyone anything, but it's up to you to choose your own beliefs in life. They will make a lot of difference in the sufferings and the pains you will give to yourself, you will put yourself through. Anyway, it's your choice, it's your life. I have nothing to do with it. I'm here just to try to offer some different points of view that I think could be helpful. So, about this subject, necessary sufferings you can avoid. I want you to know that you always have a choice what to think, what to feel, how to react, and how to act. How have you been hurting yourself? I would like you to think about this. And in what situations? I'm talking about self-responsibility, because you are the only one who can stop this inner process and put yourself together. Your thoughts, points of view, the way you see things, the way you treat yourself. That's the most important thing. Who you are for yourself. And one thing very important, the only way I know to cure a suffering is detachment, to let go the dream, the illusion. As long as you keep yourself attached to that dream you once had, to that illusion, then you will suffer more and more until you decide to let the dream go, abandon the illusion. So, detachment is really the cure for most of our sufferings. Just let go. If things were not the way you wanted, you expected, or someone didn't act the way you like it, let go. Free yourself of this suffering that you are causing. People and situations in life, they don't make us suffer. We suffer with them. They don't have the power unless we give them the power to affect us in a bad way. You can stop many of your sufferings when you want to. You just have to decide that I don't want this anymore. I will have self-discipline with my mind. So I hope you take good care of you and don't expect others to do your duty. You are the one responsible for your thoughts, your emotions, and your life. So do something about it. Be responsible with yourself, but not too demanding, not a neurotic perfectionist, right? Treat you with love and compassion because you are really the most important person for you in this world forever. And that's it for today. You can participate in the podcast by sending a voice message through the link in my Instagram bio, which is at Greicy Hoo, GreicyHoo. Yes, your audio up to 1 minute can appear here in a future episode. Or you can reach me on Instagram to DM me a comment, question, or suggestion. If you liked this podcast, subscribe on your favorite platform to receive new episodes or follow me on Instagram to find out when there will be a new one on the air. Stay well and we'll talk again in the next episode.